Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel. Happen to be totally blind since birth. Talking about X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 1. To me, my X-Men. This one premiered on March 20th in 2024. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched this episode, I'd advise you to do that, or you're going to get spoiled. However, if you don't mind those, then come right along. You do you. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. So it has been several decades since X-Men the animated series ended, and I got to say this episode, the first two actually, they feel like the show's back. I really like the story. I like the characters. It feels like we are back in the X-Men continuity that is my absolute favorite. I mean, the movies are great, but you only have so much time to tell stories within an hour and a half. And then you got to wait a couple more years for the next twist of the snake. So I love being back in this continuity. I like how this episode begins. It's like a year after Xavier was supposedly unalived. We all know that, he's off with Lalandra and the Shi'ar, and they're doctoring him up. And you have the X-Men kind of letting their hair down because the mutants have gained a lot of sympathy and understanding from what Gyrick did to Xavier. So they're actually kind of just relaxing for a bit. I would love to have seen some events that happened in between Xavier's assassination and now. Well, I mean, it's not an assassination. I mean, he's okay, but yeah, Wolverine mentions a couple of things. Bishop is on the team, and it would have been cool to see, how that happened. But maybe we'll get to that. I mean, the episodes, we've only got one and two that have aired so far. We're on the eve of episode 3, Fire Made Flesh. That hasn't aired as of this recording. But yeah, I hope to see how Bishop got on the team. But it's still, the characters feel the same. We've, had a bit of a time jump. But, right off the bat, the news announcers talking about Xavier and how the public, it's a bit more on the side of mutants. However, you've got the Friends of Humanity, the FOH, who we were introduced to in X-Men Season 2. And right off the bat, these guys aren't happy with that because, they have based their beliefs on fear. They are afraid that they're going to be obsolete. They are afraid that mutants are, basically going to overshadow them. So they are acting out of fear. They use a lot of intimidation, of course, but the FOH is basing everything on a what if. What if these mutants, what if they make us obsolete? So you've got them capturing Acosta, and I think we're introduced to what the audio description track, or who the audio description track rather, refers to as the scar-faced man. And right off the bat, I was thinking, okay, this is probably Carl Dente, and that's, yeah, pretty sure who that is. So I wonder where Creed is. I'm thinking Sabretooth might have actually finished him off. I don't know for sure, but we'll see. And you've got that scene where Storm is doing her thing. They're just about ready to blast Acosta when you've got the team showing up. And it's one of my favorite scenes because they make rather short work of the FOH here, but we're not done with them. But I like that you get to see Storm right off the bat. You have Alison Seeley Smith back doing the voice, which is spectacular. So just before the attack in the warehouse commences, we learn that there is someone who's paying the FOH to bring in mutants. I didn't really think of that when I first watched it because I was not feeling too good when watching the first two episodes for the first time. But maybe it could be someone within the U.S. government, could be Sinister, working behind the shadows, experimenting on mutants. Well, I think it was possibly now I don't know if it was Carl or not, but one of them said they were, using mutants for target practice. I don't know if it's Sinister or not, but I like that we probably don't know who that buyer is yet. But then again, maybe we do. Maybe we've seen them in this episode. Both Gyrick and Trask are back. They are playing, I guess, somewhat prevalent roles in this episode. Never liked those two characters, but you're not supposed to like them. This feels, somewhat reminiscent of Night of the Sentinels, but in a good way. You're introducing some of the audience who might not have seen the X-Men, who are coming into this show with fresh new eyes, the characters, because you've got Acosta, and he's saved from Sentinel tech, just like Jubilee was saved from the Sentinels during the attack on, Salem Mall. And they take him back to Xavier's mansion, the X Mansion. And I like how we're reintroduced, or some people might be introduced to these characters for the first time. You get to see Jubilee, and I love her voice actor. To me, it sounds, very, very, very similar to Alison Court. So, I think she did a fantastic job. It's awesome to have George Buza back as Beast. I grinned so big when, hearing him listening to Mozart as the audio description track was describing him kind of walking across the ceiling. He's humming his Mozart stuff as he's working on Bishop's time travel device. It's just so cool to hear George doing Beast again. I loved him when I was a kid, but I love him even more as an adult. I didn't pay too much attention to Cyclops when I was a kid, but I still liked him. But now, I really like him a lot as well. And I think Ray Chase does a phenomenal job voicing Cyclops. I get chills whenever I listen to that guy. I really do miss Norm Spencer. I try to dedicate every video that I can relating to X-Men the Animated Series to Norm, because he was just such a fantastic Cyclops. And by the way, this one is dedicated to him as well. But I really like what Ray brings to the role of Cyclops. It's such a good performance, I think. You've got Cal Dodd back as Wolverine. And I like how we get to see him for the first time when he's in the Danger Room. Jubilee takes Acosta in there. And, we get to hear Magneto, who is now voiced by Matthew... just a second. Matthew Watterson this time around. I really wanted to make sure I got that name correct. I think he does a really good Magneto when we see him as a simulation in the Danger Room. Sounds a lot like Magneto to me. So, but after the training sequence, when Jubilee's trying to get Acosta to show off his powers, Wolverine is he's still in there doing his Danger Room thing, just like we saw him for the first time in Night of the Sentinels, when Jubilee heads into the Danger Room on accident in part one of that two-parter. She sees Gambit and Wolverine training, and I like how, we first see him in this show doing what he's usually doing in the Danger Room. I think it's a cool little callback to seeing him for the first time in Night of the Sentinels. I really like this scene. Well, although he does scare Acosta away, and then you've got the X-Men having to try to track him down, which leads them to that nightclub. But I liked seeing how, Rogue and Gambit's relationship, it's progressed here, and they seem closer. I wonder if Xavier's death made them realize that, life is short. Why do I keep saying his death? He's fine. He's off being doctored up by the Shi'ar. His close brush with death helped them realize that maybe they need to kind of move things along. Yeah. Of course, you have Jennifer Hale, who's now voicing Jean Grey. If you've watched Wolverine and the X-Men, she voiced Jean in that. If you've played Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, she's Jean in that. I think she does a really wonderful job, and I think it's an awesome experience listening to her voice Jean. You've got Catherine Disher, who did voice Jean in the original series. She's playing Valerie Cooper in this incarnation. And not really sure how I feel about Val. She does some interesting things in the comics. See, before the show was ever announced, before this revival was ever announced, I looked up a lot of stuff in the comics. You know, for those of you who are just joining the channel, yeah, I did a lot of digging because I never thought we would get this on TV. And, you know, seeing that the X-Men series, you know, back in the 90s was my comics, I was like, so what would have happened? What would we have gotten if this had continued? And, you know, so we do know that she's responsible for some stuff in the comics. So I like that she's showing up here. We do know that she is connected with a little something called Project Wide Awake. And if you've watched the X-Men episode Hidden Agendas, in that one, Project Wide Awake data is mentioned. They're acquiring certain, you know, bits of information regarding mutants. So we're briefly introduced to that in one of the last episodes of the original animated series. So I would imagine that Wide Awake is going to have a little something to do in season 1 before we're through with it. I would like to think so anyway. I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing more stuff regarding Wide Awake since this is continuing, you know, from the original animated series. Jean is pregnant. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is Jean, but maybe this is not Jean. This could be Madeline Pryor. Jean might have been replaced with Madeline before the show even began. As I said, this is being filmed on the eve of episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, because of my spring crud bout that I've been going through. So I don't know that yet. This is past me, and I don't know when you guys are going to be seeing this, hopefully pretty soon. So you guys will probably know. I'll probably know as this airs. But I liked seeing what they were hinting at in the original animated series, you know, from the moment in time Fugitives where Jean, you know, she reads Cable's mind, she reads Nate's mind, and she's like, this man is more important to the future, to our future, to, you know, Jean and Scott's future than anyone realizes. So I love that they're going here. I don't know if Cyclops is ever going to find out that, yeah, the baby you guys are going to have is Cable, but I always wanted to see his reaction, to see, you know, what that must be like for him. Probably not a big tearjerker moment, but I can't wait for that. If we get it, that's cool. If we don't, I mean, that's cool too. But it's something that I've been wanting to see on TV for quite some time. Just such a cool revelation. I think my friend Angela let me know a long time ago, you know, before I was really able to peruse the internet, that, yeah, Cable is Jean and Scott's kid. I don't know if I picked up on that when I was watching the original animated series. Maybe I did. I think I did. I just remember her mentioning that to me and being floored. So you've got Gyrick in prison. We get to go see the guy who shot Xavier, and it's a really tense scene, you know, because Gyrick is just as insanely against mutants as ever, calling them just a fad. They're in vogue. He calls himself a normal person, and you know, he's talking about how tolerance leads to extinction. So I'd like to think maybe we'll be seeing Project Zero Tolerance at some point in X-Men. I think Bastion might have something to do with that as well. I remember that being mentioned in my X-Men 90, not X-Men 97, X-Men The Next Dimension video game. Bastion was a very cool main antagonist in that game, and he's got a lot of stuff to do in the comics. So hopefully they'll be bringing Bastion in to the show at some point. Because Gyrick, you know, he does mention tolerance leading to extinction, so that made me think of Zero Tolerance. Jean doing what she does, torturing him, and then all of a sudden she has this weird premonition, and I think we get a lot of little, you know, glimpses of what could possibly happen. I think the audio description track tries to make a connection between a lot of what we're seeing, a lot of the fallout that they say that it's in some shape, form, and fashion related to what we're seeing when Roberto is doing, his thing, releasing his solar radiation powers. So, you've got that. You've got Jean holding baby Nate in the vision. At least we think it's Jean. And then I heard this voice say, "Oh no, not again, something, something." The rest of it was muffled. So just little images of what she's seeing. She started out trying to figure out where all the Sentinel tech was coming from, where they were getting all of this, the Friends of Humanity, where they were getting all the Sentinel tech. And, that's why she started having that weird vision. So that in turn leads us to the end of the episode. One of my favorite fight scenes, because the X-Men take out the Sentinels like they're nothing. As Storm says, they're relics of hate. I like seeing Trask again. And he lets us know that, Gyrick has friends in prison, because there are people that still do not care very much for mutants. So Gyrick has connections, and I guess he and Trask are somehow responsible for this Sentinel tech getting into the hands of the FOH. But you got that really fun Sentinel battle at the end. I think one of my favorite parts is when Beast jumps into one's chest and he's kind of using it to punch and kick the others. Of course, there's that phenomenal moment where Storm does the Omega level thing, and she's using the sands of the desert to just sweep all of them up in this giant tornado, according to the audio description track, which anybody can access on Disney+. It's a thing. In case you're wondering how I'm watching this stuff, you newcomers to the channel. I think my favorite part was Master Mold being taken out like a chump. He showed up in Jean's little premonition, but Wolverine just decapitates him. And, at the end of season 1, I think all he was a head. He shows up again in the episode Courage as just a head. I guess this is a backup of Master Mold, but he's taken out like that. And it's just such a cool fight scene. Awesome to hear Cal Dodd doing his Wolverine screams, and Lenore Zann, as Rogue. Such fantastic, I guess you can call it choreography, even though it is in animation. I loved seeing all of them doing their thing. Cyclops was doing the optic blast thing. I like how he lands. He uses his optic blast to cushion his fall, and he makes that giant crater there. We'd never had audio description in the 90s. So that was another thing that just floored me as I was watching the premiere for the first time. Yeah, I'm going to say watch. I use that word a lot. If that makes you guys kind of shake your heads, that's what I do. Listening to the premiere, just doesn't sound as catchy to me. So I'm going to use watched. And of course, you've got that moment at the end of the episode where, Acosta's saved and he heads home. We're probably going to see him again, because if you read the comics, you know that spoiler alert, the Hellfire Club has a little something to do with him. So I would imagine we'd be seeing them at some point in the show. But yeah, they get him home. He leaves, gives Jubilee his card, and you've got that cliffhanger at the end of the episode. And that's another thing I love about this show. These aren't one-off episodes like some of the later seasons were. I think we're in for a lot of season 1 storytelling where each episode dovetails into the next, because you've got Magneto at the end of this one showing up to the mansion, and he's letting everybody know, hey, Xavier's will and testament, everything is left to me. The house, his fortune, everything belongs to me, my X-Men. And I really liked the way this ends. Such a cool way to end the first episode. I like that we got a double dose of X-Men97 last week. You could go right into the next episode. Part of me wishes they'd waited a week, but I'm kind of glad they didn't. It was nice to go into the next episode. And we'll be talking about Mutant Liberation Begins in the next video. I'm not sure when that's coming out. I'm still trying to beat this crud best as I can. I'm getting my voice back, taking a lot of cough suppressant to try and get rid of this stuff. And it seems to be working pretty well so far. But I love the first episode. I think I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Such a fantastic start to this show. It feels like X-Men is back. I was not really sure what to expect. I had my expectations somewhere in the middle. I thought I'd like it, but I liked it a heck of a lot. It feels like coming home when it comes to watching this new show. Seamlessly fits, well, in my opinion anyway, with the final episode of the original animated series, Graduation Day. Absolutely loved this one. Can't wait to get into the next one. Till next time, guys. Or should I say true believers?